That's what we want to do. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Unstoppable podcast series. It's been a minute. It's been a minute because I've been traveling, doing events. But during an event that I was at in Miami, I met this wonderful guy here. His name is Tom LeMere, and he is doing some big things with the Tom LeMere Project, and I can't wait for him to speak on it today. He's going to provide incredible value. If you are in the single community, you definitely want to tune into this podcast because this is really good for you. I wish of course, I'm engaged now, but I wish when I was single that this was, I had this option. I had this feedback from people that were really trying to make this an intentional part of dating, and not even dating, it's a lifestyle. So Tom is going to get into it and tell you all about it. So Tom, thank you for coming. Welcome.
I really appreciate it, Megan. Thanks for having me. This is great. So yeah, right off the bat, let's just be honest with the dating space these days. It's just terrible. And everybody that I talk to, women, men, both, they're all on the apps. They're like, "This is terrible. There's nobody out there." One, there is everybody out there, but when you're on these apps, first thing is when you're matching with people, a lot of people just are going like this. They're just swiping through left and right, looking for whatever, and mostly that's for a dopamine hit. And then you get a
Mhm.
match, and you go back through and you say, "I really don't even want to talk to this person." Or you have a lot of those matches and you're like, "I don't want to talk to any of these people," or you have your own life going on. And then the
Right.
people that are responding are like, "Why aren't why did you match with me?" And then so it's a whole thing. There's a lot of things that are just missed in communication like that way. And also there's nothing organic about it. So you
Right.
meet up with somebody and there's this automatic dating stigma on why you're meeting. So you might, instead of if you met somebody at a social event or anywhere you're shopping at the bar, wherever you're at, it's a very organic thing, and you can become friends or you can start talking business, whatever. But when you do the apps, it's a very non-organic connection. On top of that, we can be honest here too. A lot of dudes are on there and they're swiping and they're saying right out the gate some really only sexual things. So it's very sexualized. Women are being extremely sexualized right out of the gate before anybody has a conversation.
Mm.
So I have a lot of those messages too. Women just text me all the time with these messages. I could start a new Instagram or TikTok page of just messages from dudes talking about, "Hey, you want to jump on this dick?" Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Also, there's a dating space that I want to see because I'm single myself, and I'm having the same issue on apps. I don't even have them anymore, and it's way better off when you do come off of the app, and you can just really, this is very simple. All you have to do is just start talking to people. Just go
Mm.
talk to people. Go meet everybody. So what did I want? The Tom LeMere project, the dating events that I do, that's a piece of the dating that I want to see. And it's connection and intention. And it's not practical to throw people in a room that, "Okay, here, just go fall in love." But you can do the first step, and it's just conversation. And it's just getting in front of people. And in these days, it's very daunting for people, especially dudes who have to be the leader. So that's
Right.
the part of the masculine energy.
Mhm.
Men have to make the first step because that's part of being a leader. Or you're just going to be this little beta bitch, and who
Mhm.
wants to be that? So
Right. Right.
problem with that is that's what's happening these days, and the women have to show up in their masculine energy. They get jaded at the guy, and it's a whole problem.
Right. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. When you said women have to show up in their masculinity, like that is so much truth in that. And then it's like a double-edged sword because guys are like, well, I want to be able to lead, and then but the good guys are want to say that. And but then they've been hurt or they've chosen a path, a lot of times it could be women too, I get it.
Sure.
But they have to stay in that masculinity side and they don't want to let their guard down to let a good man take care of them. So because like you said, they've always got that bad experience or that Snapchat, "Hey, go on Snapchat or text me this."
Hmm.
I swear I hate Snapchat. I think
Yeah.
it's not bad if it's done intentionally, but I think there's been so many problems come out of that or just, if
Yeah.
it's done the wrong way, but I think that what you're doing is amazing. When you were telling me about in Miami, I was like, "You've gotta get on the podcast. There's so many women that listen to this podcast. We've gotta get you on." And I was telling you earlier, I was sharing with a friend at my birthday party. We were at the Virgin Rooftop for my 40th. I'm a big 40. And I was telling her about it, and she's like, "We need this in Nashville. Like, we need this here," because she's single. And she's
Yeah.
like, "This is something that I would feel safe going to, that he's doing, this project that he's doing, and that I can let my guard down and be really who I am because he's already done the background and screened everybody, men and women, before they come in."
Mhm. Correct.
So that's really cool. I like that. So what you just were tired of seeing it, your friends or whatever, which is what led you to thinking bigger and to doing
Sure.
something a little bit differently out of the box, which is awesome. So go a little bit into detail about what happened then after the thought. Like, what would you just
After
you
the sure, sure. After the thought, yes, all of that you said, and me. So basically, so I'm doing this kind of for me too, gathering data to see what works because I'm single too. I'm like, all right, I'm going to put this on for other people because this is what I want. So
right?
part of the manifestation and all that too, that's energy and just creating a space for this.
Mhm.
So I just decided, what am I sitting around? I could just do this. I'm just going to do it. So
Yeah.
here's exactly what I did. Here's the framework. Here's all I did. I knew what kind of people wanted on a small scale. All right, you don't want a bunch of douchers showing up. You don't want a bunch of guys. This is from a woman's perspective. You don't want a bunch of dudes that are coming and trying to sexualize you and just trying to get laid. There's a space for that. It's called the dive bar down the street where anybody can go do that.
Right.
So
Right.
this is more of like who's looking for some sort of connection, conversation. And I said, all right, I can just do this. So I booked an Airbnb and I made it a nice location, nice pool, great ambiance in the background. And when people were signing up, I part of the thing was everybody's going to be vetted. And this again was mostly for dudes because women are pretty good about being honest about what they're looking for, and they're guys will show up just wanting to get laid, wanting to get drunk. So I had to make sure I had a conversation with them. And also the other thing was if you were just this emotionally constipated person where you're like, I
Mhm.
have to get a girlfriend because whatever. I was like, hey man, all good on your dream there, but you got to work on yourself because that's where your true happiness is going to come from. And we can work
Right.
on that separate. There's another part of the Tom
Mhm.
LeMere project where we work on
So
that.
so good.
Women too. Women. I had a woman call me. She signed up,
Mhm.
called me back and said, Tom, I just ran into my ex-boyfriend and I was floored. I am not ready for this. And I have to pull myself out. I said, hey, thanks for being honest. Um, there was a couple of people I had to deny because they were just like, oh, we're gonna come party. I was like, no, yes, we're gonna have a great time. Yes, there's gonna be alcohol. Yes, there's gonna be food. Yes, there's gonna be music. But this is a more like an intentional conversation connection in any
Yeah.
capacity. So
Let me out of here too.
uh,
When he said Airbnb, guys, this is just for the event location. They're not going there and staying. This is just like a one night
right,
place just to be able to talk without bar music, whatever. So I want to make sure people really understand the intention of that.
yes,
It's not like, oh, we're gonna go,
correct.
the fantasy suite. There's
Oh
none of that.
yeah, no, you're gonna get some like castle. No, it's
Yeah.
just a place
Yeah.
that I get part of it that I book
Mhm.
to bring everybody together
That's
and
awesome.
make sure it's a nice location, quiet and all that.
That's awesome. And where is the ones taking place so far? You said it was
Palm
West
Beach, Florida.
Palm Beach, Florida. That's awesome. Yeah,
So I
because
had
I mean
people come out. I had some people drive up from Miami. People that I
mhm,
didn't even didn't know. Of course,
mhm,
I knew of some people just because they a few friends were single and wanted to try it out, and they did, and I got great feedback. Some people were showing up to the Airbnb. I didn't know who they were. I mean, I knew who they were because they signed up, and I made a Facebook group for men and women separately, so they could get to know each other. Like the women could get to know each other first before coming in.
mhm.
Same thing with the men, because if you just show up and a bunch of strangers, it's a little daunting to just start talking at an event. So I made a private Facebook group for everybody prior, so the women could conversate, and I would ask questions as well. Like every day, I had a question. What are three things you want to see in a man? What are three red flags? I also made a questionnaire prior to the event, 15 questions of what everybody's looking for, and I have all that data. So when they got here, here's how it went. People showed up, and I kind of they're not huge events where there's like 100 people, and I separate everybody. It's at an Airbnb, and it's a smaller type of thing. We did a little kind of like mixer right in the beginning, so everybody could kind of get to know each other and talk and all that. And then
Oh,
I separated
icebreaker.
everybody. Yeah, it was
Mhm.
great. And then I had some sort of teachings or whatever you want to call it, where I became the fall guy. I said, "Here, guys, we're going to be very matter of fact about this." And there was a little bar in the backyard, the setup, and
Mhm.
my assistant went and sat there, and I went up to her in three different ways. It was kind of like we set the setting of a social experience, a social setting where she's there having a good time, and I walked up to her and I, like a drunken idiot, just like fell on her, like, "Hey," like it very, you know,
Yeah.
rude and just,
Right.
but she pushed me away. This is one thing you don't want to do, just being a fucking jerk off and a drunk asshole. This is what you do not want to do. The
Right.
second one is what most men will do. Uh, they will touch eye contact. Every signal from a girl to come over and talk to them, and they won't because they're terrified and they get stuck in here that they're not good enough. She's not going to like me. There's all sorts of stuff, right? She might be an attractive girl, and they get in here and they won't go over. Well, what's good is that? Because if you go over and get shot down, well, the goal wasn't to get accepted. The goal is for you to take the first step. especially if you're scared. So I spoke about that. And then I went and did what every man should do if they're interested about talking to a woman. You just go up and you say something respectful. Hey, I noticed you over here. I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Tom. How are you? And then that's it. If she shoots you down, it doesn't matter because you made the first step and she will at least respect that you came over.
Absolutely. And you didn't make a jerk out of yourself, you
Right.
know?
Of
Big.
course.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm gonna take it back just a few notches. Because I'm really curious on this. When you go to vet these people to bring them in, what do you do? Do you get them on the phone and talk to them? Do you make them fill out a
Yes.
survey? Like, what are their
Both.
process steps that they have to go
Yeah.
through to
There's first thing is I have it out there. I have a website, a quick form and all that. And
Mhm.
there's a sign up link with a questionnaire. So I get the questions and the way they answer them. And I'll tell you one of the flags is this. And like it or not, this is just how it goes. If you, one of the questions is, what is your living situation? One of the answers is, I live with my parents or in my parents' basement. Especially as a man, if you live in your parents' basement, you you are currently not able to lead yourself.
Mm,
So how are you going to lead a relationship or a woman or anything? So you
okay.
have to. I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm saying you need to get out of your parents' basement.
Yes, I'm gonna hit on that for a second. That is really good. This is all like about organic. We said we're just gonna go in organic this
Sure.
podcast up. So many people think that, oh, I'm a failure because I'm having, lost my job. I'm in my parents' basement. That's not what he's saying, guys. You could be a great person and have bad luck, but does that mean that you're ready to take on a family? Does that mean that you're ready to start a family? I would say not. I would not want to position myself until I am ready to go. I get I get so many women, and I've been here before too, where you've had to take care of a man. And there's nothing wrong with partnership. There's nothing wrong with joint things, okay? Okay, so you women out there don't come at me like I can do it on my own. I'm not saying that you can't. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But chivalry is not dead for me. And like I tell my fiance that all the time. I'm like, chivalry is not dead. Opening the door, doing sweet things is not dead. I love that kind of stuff. And I love to know that a man is taking care of a woman. I'm not saying they should wear it all on their back, especially if you've been together for a while, if you're married, you both should be doing equal stuff. Yeah, whatever. That's just my opinion. But so many women start dating men that just are not there because they can't take care of themselves. So how are they gonna take care of you? Emotionally, financially? They're not gonna be able to do it. Why? That's a disaster from the start. And
100%.
it's gonna lead to resentment, a lot of resentment down the road.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a lot of people might overlook the fact that, well, this is a small thing. They live at home. It's not a big deal. Maybe at first you're having a nice time or whatever, and then you can't go to somebody's house because the parents are always there. You can't, and then the resentment starts to build. You're right. So after time, you'll have a thought process of, oh, what a terrible decision this was. But now I'm obligated because now I
Yeah.
said I didn't care. Now I said I don't mind. When you really do, this is where authenticity shows up too. It's okay to say, from a woman's perspective, or really anybody's perspective, I don't want to date somebody who lives at home with their parents and they're in their 30s. This is different if you're 19 years old. Of course, you're still a child. I'm
Yeah.
talking about, I'm talking about people like, late 20s and above.
Right.
Get out
Yeah.
of your parents' basement. I know times are tough with the money and everything, but, and people need help. And if you need help, well, then keep the help going and keep working on yourself. Keep going every day.
Yeah.
Lean on yourself, lean on the people that you can help with support to get you out of that situation. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to ask you, Mega, what friends do you know that when they say, hey, they meet a guy and they say, hey, I currently live at home and they're 35 years old. The first thing they're going to be like, I don't know, I don't want to do this, but maybe they're lonely. Maybe they've been wanting some sort of affection and attention so long that they're just going to overlook that fact.
Mhm.
Might sound like a small thing, but in the long run, it's not.
No, it's not, and that's the thing, like, I know personal friends of mine that have had to move back home with their family, and there is nothing wrong with that because times are
No.
hard right now. I know people that are married that have to live at home with their family, and, it's not what they want, they're trying to get out of it, and more respect to them, they're married, so, I mean, they're trying to make a living out of it. He's talking about the ones that are seeking relationship, that are saying, "I'm ready for relationship, I'm single, I'm not married, I'm not committed, I'm gonna take on a woman and hopefully she can make it because I can't take care of myself."
Right. And
It's just
the guy that you said, so
Mhm.
there's two different things. So the people that you said, they don't want to be in that situation. They're trying to get out of it. They're working
Mhm.
their ass off.
Yeah,
Versus the guy who's living in his parents' basement watching Netflix, eating ho-hos, and just chilling out. That's a whole
yeah,
different mentality.
very different,
So,
and
you know,
commend you for doing that.
yeah.
That's a huge question to have on your
Mhm.
survey. Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry,
I
I
had
had
this,
a cliff
and that, yeah, that was just one of them. Some of the other ones that, red flags you see in people. What is your emotional availability? What do you find as an emotional intelligence factor from another person?
Mm.
And I went through the questions, and then I spoke with every person. The men was my biggest, the biggest one. I had to make sure men were coming in for the right reasons. And it's not
Mhm.
that you got to be a little bitch coming into these things. It's that, no, you could be a leader, come in to communicate. And mostly I was like, hey man, why are you coming to this thing? And they're like, well, I've been sick of this dating space, and I really am interested in this type of connection that you're talking about. If it was any kind of answer like that, they were good to go. If they come in, well, it sounds like fun, and you got drinks. No. So there's a couple of guys where I was like, hey guys, listen, no problem with that. I have no problem with your lifestyle or what you're doing. Just go to the bar next door down the street, and that's where you're going to find what you're looking for the
Right.
one night stand or whatever that is.
You're being intentional with this. That's awesome. That's
I'm
really
not
cool.
saying, listen, if people want to be adults and make decisions afterwards, that's on them. If they, but um, and I don't have any rules about how they want to connect when they're here either. They can a lot of places they'll be like, don't exchange phone numbers or emails because we do that at the end. We want to make sure. I have no rules. If you guys want to, there's many people that were at the event that they connected on every different level, friends, business. Some were interested, but if you're not, you can say, oh, I have a friend that would really like to meet you because X, Y, and Z. Or hey, we both like brunch, let's go set up a brunch with all of our friends, and then we
Mm.
can all have this little community. And that's how it starts. Like the first, but people, I think, get inside their head and they say, I got a lot of questions afterwards. Hey, did anybody fall in love? Was there any? I'm like, that's not the case. The premise of the whole event.
Right.
Yes, it's a dating event.
Yeah.
No, it's not practical to put people in a room to be like, here, you just met this person, go fall in love. Uh, there could be like sparks flying, there could be all that stuff, but there's only one way to find out, and that's get in front of each other.
Yeah, get in front of each other in a safe place and
Yeah,
then make conversation, go on a couple days, a days afterward, really get to digging and know people.
sure,
I mean, I think one of the problems a lot of women that I coach with Unstoppable Women that I talk to, um, and I realized this, and it was just like an aha moment, which is really why I zoned in on doing what I did for the women. There's so many things that I'm doing there, but was because like myself, I watched what I picked. And it goes back to, like, my first definition of love was somebody that was a narcissist, which I didn't know what that word was at the time,
sure, sure,
and somebody that was, verbally and sometimes, verbally abusive, and there was some other things that, I mean, I'm not and it's just too long to pack out on this podcast,
sure.
but that was my first definition of love. And so I just ran with it, and I thought for some reason in my morbid way that I was attracted to it. Now, not everybody that I dated from then or really had a serious relationship with followed that same path, but there were certain qualities in some that were. And some of the breakups were my fault because I wasn't emotionally there because I hadn't healed from the trauma that had happened before, and that, like I said, we could go down a complete rabbit hole on that. And I mean, you both agree with that. Unhealed trauma leads into bad decisions in relationships and life and everything else. And I didn't understand that till I got older and started unpacking it and then stop making those myriad decisions. But I came back to, like, my first definition of what I thought love was, and it totally wasn't. It was opposite of what love should be. And, I was young and having to figure it out, and then continually making those choices a lot of times, again, in attraction and looking for those things, love bombed and just,
Mm,
fear of abandonment. All that stuff came and just I would almost like some of these women do and some of these men do, they settle because they don't wanna be alone. And it's like, okay, they don't fit this quality, but I always encourage people, like, you gotta make a non-negotiable. You gotta stick to your non-negotiable list. Like, I'm all about people can change, have some non-negotiables and negotiables or whatever, but there's some that to the root of your core, you shouldn't budge on because it's not gonna work. Like you said, like, "Well, I don't really want somebody that doesn't have a job and living at home in the basement with their parents, but maybe he'll change," or "I'm lonely,
mm,
I just wanna be with somebody," and then it leads to, like, a path of, like you said, I can't say anything now, I'm too far in, it's not working, I resent this person, I can't stand to see him breathe, and it doesn't work? Um, and yeah, I think that all goes back to it, and then another thing too, Tom, and I don't know if a lot of the guys that you work with have this problem. I know some of the ones that I know do, and we've talked about it before, but a lot of the women that I coach, they have a lot of their problems with relationships goes back to daddy issues. And it goes back to their dad either not being there because they've passed, or in my case, my dad had a severe traumatic brain injury. He was a great man. But during my teens, when I was supposed to see how a young lady was supposed to be treated, my dad was trying to remember his name. He was trying to survive. He was legally blind, and that's not a dig at him. I mean, that's just how it was. So I had to figure it out on my own. I mean, when my mom said, like, "You can't do this," she tried her best, but there's only certain things a mom can teach. A male role model really teaches their daughter how a man is supposed to treat them. I fully believe that.
Mhm.
And, in that case, I didn't have that example, so I went with the first love example that or what I thought was love example, and I mimicked that's what I thought love was for so long. Chaos, drama, and just all kinds of crap until I figured out the problem and I had that aha moment. I was able to help other women, and then they go back and they're like, "Oh my gosh, my dad wasn't here. My dad, I was raised by a single mom. She did the best she could, but I didn't have that male influence of what a good man should be like and treat a woman like." So I don't
Sure.
know. Yeah, I don't know if you see that some on the male side. Sometimes the
Yeah.
males have mom issues.
It's there'll be, yeah, that or a toxic bringing, or even not. It doesn't have to be toxic. It can be just like certain things that triggered you when you were a kid, and yeah, that's the certain ways that you're wired, and then you carry that through your adulthood, and
Mhm.
then that could turn into like an ego thing, where your ego, when you're figuring it out when you're a kid, it's a protective thing, and when you become an adult, it makes you an avoidant because you've changed and you don't know how to change with it.
Yeah.
So healing all that stuff in the past, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be if your father wasn't there, your mother wasn't there, or any sort of abandonment, any sort of just whatever you have.
Mhm.
It can follow you, and if you haven't dealt with it, you have to deal with it. And then I want to touch on what you said about the narcissism and the love bombing as well, because that's huge. Like that right now, that's like a huge, and all that is like guys and girls, well, mostly girls. Like if you see a guy out there and you meet him and he's immediately trying to take you on a vacation or away or just buying you concert tickets. This is within like a few days of knowing you or a week or whatever. This is a huge sign of possible what the narcissist is going to do, because he's going to pull back from that when you are when you start reciprocating any sort of love or feelings, he will pull back, and
Mhm.
then you will chase him, and it's a whole problem. So
Yeah.
you're right. The women that I've known, a lot of women who were very attracted to narcissists, so they haven't healed from that. And then when a good leader, a good man shows up in their life, they'll reject them. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you about the healing. And then men as well, if they haven't healed from what they have going on, they will self-sabotage good women. Any good one, and I can speak from authority on this because I used to do it. And whatever I was doing, my I used to live a very toxic life where I was just my two vices, huge vices, was blacking out on alcohol and vagina, unemotional vagina, and just sleeping with whoever I could. Now this is, you have to pull yourself out of that. And once you get into that web you've spun for your life and the hypnotic rhythm that it's day after day, and you don't even know how you got into it. You were just having fun, for a couple, however long you were just having fun, and then it becomes your life. And
Right,
then you're just
right,
getting drunk all the time with your friends, and then you become the ringleader to go do this. Be like, all right, Thursday night we're going here, Friday, Saturday, Sunday we're going to go here, here, and here. And
right.
the whole time in the pit of my core, I've just wanted a good, feminine, divine feminine woman to build a relationship with, and a family and all of that. And I wasn't doing anything to show up like that. It was just booze and sex. And you wake up one day and you're like, what the fuck? Numerous times you're going to wake up and say, what am I doing? You're looking at the ceiling. What am I doing? So I started my own path of pulling myself out of that, because no one can tell you to do it. They can notice it maybe and say, hey, what are you doing? And you're like, once you decide I've had with this, because this is just, I just have an empty, I just have this empty life, and it's just, I'm just hungover all the time. Yeah, I have a job. Yeah, I'm doing some things. Yeah, okay, whatever. No, but things that you actually want from your most authentic, most core part of your soul, you're not doing, and you're avoiding because, one, the ego could show up and makes you an avoidant, and now you're scared to be seen. All these things, it's a huge thing. We love bombing. Yeah, that's where it started. Don't,
Yeah,
if you're love bombing, stop. And if you're a woman and you notice it, pump the brakes and have a hard look at who you're talking about.
it is, and the sad thing about it is, though, a lot of these women are not gonna notice it until they go through it. They're
Mhm.
and, that was with me, when I mean, I had doses here and there, I think, of narcissist, personalities or whatever. Because I think, it can be you can sit there and diagnose everybody as a narcissist if you really want to and look, right?
Right,
It's
right.
like
There's tendencies all over the place of
yeah.
argument.
Y
No,
yeah.
not everybody's an actual
Not
narcissist.
everybody's an actual narcissist, no. So, I mean, you have to be careful with that because so many women admit, "I'm a narcissist," and I'm like,
I
"Yeah,
know,
but
yeah.
not
Nah,
really, not
It's
really?
a big
Yeah.
buzzword these days. I get it.
Yeah, it's yeah. So they'll watch TikTok. Oh, that's it. That's my ex, And but I had one that was that my it was a extreme case of it, and I did not realize it. And when I got out of it, I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, I really started studying what it was and everything, and I'm like, "Wow, I was completely love bombed." And then I look back at my other relationships, and I'm like, probably 1 or 2 more were." And I
Mhm.
didn't see it at the time. But then I became single again, and I started dating, and I remember I went on this date with this one guy, and I'm sitting there, and I had we had a good conversation, faith to me is important. So, women, please be careful, and this is men too. Do not give them a playbook before you and date. Because if it's the wrong person and you're giving them a playbook of what you want too much, narcissist people will be that person until they're not, okay? So,
Mhm.
I would have this my non-negotiable list and stuff like that, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm just gonna give it to them just to see if they fit." They would use it against me.
Mm.
So, you have to be very careful with that. So, you sit back and watch. Watch actions, not words. This is for
Right.
men and women, okay? And, one thing that I would do, I would see the good too much in people sometimes, and like I said, when people are listening, I have screwed up relationships myself. I am not perfect, like you said. We both had our you've had your past, I've had my past. It's taken a lot of wrong to get it right, okay? But I will say this, when I figured it out and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So I went into this date. It was, we had a conversation, "Can I pray with you over the phone?" I'm like, "Oh, he's a Christian man. This could be the one," you know?
Mhm.
In my head, I'm just saying that, not saying out loud. And, so then I started noticing, like, he would ask me questions on the phone, and I would be like, he is leading this is a leading question. This is a leading question, like, I would wear something really, really cute or a bathing suit at the lake, and he's like, "So how can you be a Christian and wear that bathing suit and blah, 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 blah?" And I'm like, "You are manipulating me."
Mhm.
Saw it, and I didn't say anything. I was like, "Maybe I'm wrong because 'cause I'm still new at trying to figure out this world of narcissism, right?" So
Yep.
I was like,
Yep.
something didn't feel right. Like, when you get that gut feeling in your stomach, like you wanna get sick or it's choking you a little bit, that's usually your gut saying, "Something's not right here. Pay attention." So I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go to lunch so I can leave real early or whatever. So I'm gonna go to lunch with this person. I'm gonna sit, whatever." As soon as I saw that person, I knew immediately within 5 minutes that's what he was, and I was nice. Offered to pay for my own food because I was like, "I don't want nothing else from this. I've seen enough." But it made me feel good to know that my gut was right and that I listened to myself and I walked away from a potentially bad situation. Because if I before, the old Megan would have kept being like, "Oh, it's nothing. This is who he really is. He's saying he's a Christian. He's saying that he's this, this, this on my list, which is what I'm looking for." And then now I've got 3 or 6 months into a relationship, and then I find out who they are. Because usually about 6 months, you're gonna know if they are one, and, it saves you a lot of time. So
Mm.
I think that you being intentional and doing a lot of the legwork on the front end
Yeah.
now, could they still sneak in? Yeah, people could lie every
Yeah,
day.
of course. Sure.
That's why your project goes more than just, "Hey, we're setting you up on this
Of
dating."
course. Right. And yeah, there's way more. And I work with men, and I will be starting a woman's part because I get a lot of questions like, Tom, I mostly get hit up from women. And they're saying, Tom, why are you only talking about dudes? Because like we're over here, like we need this too. And I said, and I used to get in my head saying, like, oh, well, I don't really know what drives a woman, but that doesn't matter. I could work with their insecurities and them being sexualized and them leveling themselves up and just having like positive words for whatever it is, right? So that's another little segue to something else later on. But the I just want to make sure that I touch on this because we did talk about narcissism and the love bombing.
Yeah.
If there's a person out there that you're dating and they want to treat you right and do good things for you, maybe take you on a vacation and it's quick, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to pull you back and screw you over as a narcissist. No, they might, but there's also the guy out there who he's lonely and he's anxious and he meets somebody and he immediately starts firing off because he's had this empty heart for so long, and he has finally somebody that is paying attention to him and he likes her, versus just the dating apps and all these things where it's just this mundane talk, and as you have some sort of connection, maybe a couple dates, maybe one or two, maybe a couple conversations, and immediately starts firing off on
Mhm.
concert tickets or a road trip or whatever immediately. That does not necessarily mean he will be a narcissist, but I will say that I've known people to do this and they're not narcissists, but once they get their needs met very quickly and that loneliness cup is full, they pull back and they're like, well, I'm good. And I really didn't really like this girl. And they just needed something. So this is not going to be a popular advice that I'm going to say right now, but this is just the way I feel. And this is what I really think men should be doing. If you're a guy out there and you're dating and you meet a woman and you hit it off and you're having a good time and you're all these things and you'll really like her, you're like, okay, you feel that. You're going to have that feeling. You're going to be like, man, what is this? This is like something. Immediately set up 3 dates with other women in parallel. You don't have to tell the woman that you're trying to date and you like. This is called dating. So you're not breaking any rules. Nothing has been defined. The reason we're doing this is this. Okay, you have this woman here. She's the one you like. Okay. If you're a lonely, anxious, needy dater and you have to just get that need met, you're going to get that need met over here with these 3 dates.
Hmm.
If you're over on these 3 dates and you're thinking about this one and you really don't want to be here and you're thinking over here, well, there could be something. So
Hmm.
that is my that is my advice for men. If you're that's how you know if it's really authentic and you're really intentional. No woman wants to be just the vessel to fill your lonely cup. She
Hmm.
wants to be picked because she's she has her own values that you see, then you like that, and you're connecting on her values, her her looks, her personality. She's very specific, not that she's just the vessel for um a shoulder to cry on or compassion or the feminine divine energy that you're looking for. If you're doing that, you're going to get that from women over here as well. So if you're getting your needs met by just going on dates because and you're not lonely, well then do not bother this one over here because when you do that, you're going to end up hurting somebody. So
Yeah.
make sure you're good to go. Don't treat somebody like the vessel if you're really actually trying to date them specifically. Like that's where the intentionality and your most authentic person can come. So that might not be popular to say that. Like, hey, we have 3 separate dates immediately when you start liking somebody else. But that's the only way you're gonna really know if you like the woman or if she's the vessel.
Right. And that's good. And a lot of men will go after strong, independent women, like these type that you're talking about, the narcissist people, because they're attracted to that. It's a challenge for them.
Mhm.
But then they don't know what to do with them. They're like, "Oh gosh, they got their own voice of reasoning and they don't really need me," or whatever, you know.
Right.
And again, vice versa, women that have been hurt, they're walking in this masculinity of their self that they have to take care of everything.
Yeah.
I've asked for help. It comes with complaint or whatever. So, it's such a it's almost a spiritual finding within yourself. I mean, it really is when you figure it out. I know you know exactly what I'm talking about because you've been there, done that. And you've had to walk through that journey yourself. And it's like you learn a little bit and then you want more. You learn a little bit and you want more, but you're
Yeah.
learning
You're exactly right.
yourself.
Yes.
Right. And
Yeah.
then you learn like, what is Megan like? What is Tom like? Wait a minute, I was just doing that because somebody else liked it. I really don't like doing that. I like doing this, this, and this.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
when you really find yourself, I tell people all the time, and I tell my fiance now, I said, when I really found myself, it came after a really bad heartbreak of a relationship. It was a broken engagement. And I mean, I'm now able to be nice if I see the person, there's no resentment, that we both moved on, we're very happy, but for a long time, I didn't wanna look to make people say their name, I don't wanna hear about it, I don't wanna hear see the picture, I don't wanna hear nothing, I was still really, really bitter about it and heartbroken about it, and I say this to say this, when I finally healed from that, this is how I knew. I was at the Country Music Hall of Fame at an event, and I might have had 1 glass of wine, so I know it was not the wine that was doing this,
Mhm.
and a music came on, and I was up dancing and laughing, and I had this peace that I can't even describe, and I was happy for me. I was there with no date, I was there by myself, and I was having a good time,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Okay, I found myself. I finally did it." It took a lot of healing, and it took a lot of me not jumping into something really quick, to heal a wound, because a lot of times people will be in a relationship jumper.
Oh
And
my
then
God. Yeah.
yeah, and then they don't heal, and they just go one trauma, they bring the baggage and baggage and baggage, and it just adds up. So, yeah, I totally agree with you on that, and the peace that you have in finding your identity is so freeing. Y'all, it's worth it. If you're listening and you're going through it right now, it's worth just taking a pause on it, on the dating life until you find it. So,
Yeah. 100%. And you'll find yourself in. I spoke about it earlier. That hypnotic rhythm and that web. If you're just a dater, a serial dater, a relationship, serial relationship, boom, boom, boom. That's
right.
all external validation, and that's all you're looking for. And you talk about it when you get the internal validation and you feel that for the first time, you're like, oh my God, this is great.
Mhm,
So, number of things you can do besides dating, men and women. And I
mhm.
tell this to everybody: just go start getting healthy physically and mentally. You'll and in parallel, it will happen the same at the same time.
Yeah.
go on a run or a walk or to the gym or whatever that looks like for you. Um, get into some good books, get into meditation, breath work. I started doing breath work. I didn't even know what it was until I did. And I just started, you sit and
Yeah.
you download the Wim Hof app and you do a couple exercises. You're like, man, I just feel better. I don't even get it.
Yeah.
So
That's
those
nice.
are very small, simple things anybody could do in 10 minutes
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
start like, getting through that and just figuring out who you actually really are.
Yeah, and gosh, I mean, I totally agree with you on that, and people are like, "Well, what can I do?" And I'm like, "Listen, like, I'm tired of being by myself or blah, blah, blah." What I did was I started renting Airbnbs for a night or 2 by myself to get me out of the scene. I didn't wanna go to a bar. I didn't wanna
Mhm.
go anywhere to get hit on. I needed my mind clear, and I wanted to work on my work. I wanted to work on Unstoppable, and that's when Unstoppable really took off and grew because I was, in the middle of the singleness, and then I went and took my work and went and to an Airbnb, and I would check in, and I would work on my book, and I would work on episodes and booking guests and events that were coming up, and I took so much pride in that, and I had just a good time just relaxing, doing puzzles. I'm like, "Am I 80 now? Like, what's going on?"
Yeah,
But it was just the slowness that I think I was attracted to of
sure.
life versus the fast pace, and then, then a part of me was like, "Well, I can download this app again." I'm like, "Why? No, no," because that's just gonna, like you said, give immediate fulfillment, but then you're gonna be
Hmm.
voided all over again, and you're gonna be
Hmm.
back at square one, and then you're
Yep.
gonna deal with somebody else's problems. Like, you take care of yourself, and there's so much more than that app. Don't do the app, y'all. Don't, if you take anything from me. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Sorry, I'm fighting a sinus infection, which is why I keep drinking the water.
Oh, it's all
Um,
good.
yeah. So going into that, the intentional dating, have you had any couples that have, like, made a relationship out of this so far?
Not a relationship as of yet, but
Mhm.
I'm very new at the dating
Yeah.
events space. So I would work with men. I would build people's confidence and go through a roadmap with them, basically. So if you don't have a roadmap in life, basically a vision,
Yeah.
get a hold of me and we can start working and we can start doing all sorts of stuff. Where were you? Where are you? Where do you actually want to go? And you spoke on this earlier, Megan, which I loved. It's I was just doing everything else everybody else was doing, or what this guy said, or that. No, everybody has something in the pit of their core of their soul that they really want to be doing. Not
Yeah.
it could be like in life or just at the moment, it doesn't matter, but that's where your most authentic stuff starts coming out. And it can be daunting to start talking about it because if you've never done it and you're
Yeah.
putting it out there, you're putting yourself out there, you're going to get a lot of judgment, good, bad, indifferent. But once you get past that and being uncomfortable, nothing good is going to happen unless you start being uncomfortable. Everybody
You're
that's sitting there right now and they're unhappy with their life and you're doing the same thing over and over. You're going to the same places. You're meeting the same people. You're living the same. You've never, and you're comfortable. And I don't mean comfortable where you're like comfortable with your feet on the couch. Yes, that's one form. But I mean, you haven't felt this like, oh my God, I'm going to try this. And then you do it and then you're fine.
right.
Everything's fine. And you just keep growing and growing and growing. That's the way to do it. You will find your best version of yourself in the most uncomfortable charted waters.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that is so good because if he's right, 100%. If you're not uncomfortable, it's not big enough. You need to keep going back to the drawing board, right? Like, to grow, you have to be uncomfortable. And it's like, well, what if somebody judges me, or what if I say the wrong thing? Who cares? You're freaking human. You're people. That's why I'm like, be genuinely who you are. I say that all the time. Be genuinely who you are because you're going to attract your people, your tribe, because the ones that are not, they would leave you the minute you didn't agree with something on Facebook.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
who cares? There's a million
Yep.
people out in the world. Love, bless them, release them. Don't be rude. Bless them, release them. But um, I love how you said that. That is so good. I've said that all the time. That is really good. And one thing once you start doing that too, you're gonna learn how to be a better communicator too. And how you're gonna know this, and I can speak this from being in a relationship, one that that I feel like it's a finally, that finally moment that you get, I thought I've had it before, but like I'm like, okay, gosh, this is it, whatever. Um, how I knew with Travis is we both came from like a lot of yelling and a lot of toxicness in past relationships. And how I really knew was when we would get into it, we wouldn't yell at each other. And I mean, we're very passionate people.
Mhm.
People may think that we're yelling, but we're just very passionate people,
Sure.
truly. But we wouldn't call each other names. We wouldn't X each other out. Like, we wouldn't, like, go days without speaking to each other. Like, we learned to communicate. And they were things that he didn't know because he's never really had what we have, and I never really had what we had. And it took a lot of communication. Um, I think a lot of people were looking a lot of men and women look for ego strokes from other people, even if they have a good relationship. Like you said, a lot of people don't know what to do with a good woman if they have them. So they still go out and they look for what I call ego strokes. They have a good woman. It's like they're not cheating, but they're that, they're testing
Hmm.
that water water
Hmm.
there a little bit. And I think that that's so important that when you're in a healthy relationship and there's communication there, that's not happening. Because if you feel um, not validated, you can go to your significant other and be like, "Hey, this really hurt my feelings," or "This is where I'm not getting mad at." And you can talk, and a lot of times they don't even know it, and they can fix that problem. So you don't feel like you have to go out and get those, those little,
Right.
those little pep talks from other
Sure.
women or whatever, because I think that's
Right.
so
And
important.
when you're able to do that, as from a man's perspective, it used to be, I don't know where this came, like if
Mhm,
guys just suppressed how they were actually they were feeling because we're a man, we're supposed to deal with it.
mhm,
Yes, I'm not saying any you shouldn't be just a whiny little girl, because as a man you're supposed to provide and to protect as a bare fucking minimum.
yeah,
But part of leadership is going to show up with your woman if you just suppress and stuff and you block her out,
mhm,
that's not going to work. So if you start saying exactly what you said, like, hey, I got X, Y, and Z. I'm feeling like this because of this, and that's part of communication and confrontation as well. So, like you said, if you get in a fight or something, not even a fight, but like confrontation is a part of communication, and if you suppress that, that's just going to bottle everything up, and
mhm.
it's not good. So, I fully agree with you on the communication is huge, and I've had to learn that, ask myself, or I did exactly what I just said. I used to do that when I was younger, and I remember being in past relationships, and it was like, hey, I can tell something's wrong with you. What's up? And you just immediately shut that down, like nothing, just leave me alone, or whatever it is, right? So if you could just like, hey, I got this going on. One, you feel like the weight of the world just came off your shoulders, and two, there's somebody there that cares, that's listening to you.
Mhm.
So confrontation is a part of communication. So have your little fights, whatever, and then it's communication. It's great. It's the
And
best
and
part,
a
I
and a fight doesn't mean it has to end. That was a big for me.
think.
I was like before it was almost like a Medea approach. If you ever watched the movie Medea, like you wronged me, I wrong you, and it was just immature. We were both
Yeah.
just really immature because we were again in unhealed trauma, and we couldn't get safe with each other because we technically didn't trust each other because like I felt like I had to defend myself, and he had to defend the person I was, people I was with had to defend their self, and it was just a constant back and forth of like ping pong match of just toxicness, and just wasn't worth it. But um I know I'm jumping back to what we're talking about before. There's just so many good nuggets we're bouncing off each
I
other.
love it. Yeah.
I think it's great. I think these listeners are gonna really enjoy this too. But when you're talking about when you start thinking bigger and making yourself uncomfortable, you may lose people. You may lose people in your realm of people that you've outgrown. You don't know. I'm not saying I never tell anybody don't act better than anybody because you're not. Always remember where you came from, right? We're all have some kind of values at the table to bring.
Sure.
But there's some people that you're just gonna have to distance yourself from. Like I said, bless and release, love them and release them and be nice to them, wish them the best, but they're gonna bring you down. They're gonna keep you in a room. Everything that you do is gonna be stupid. It's gonna be too hard. It's gonna be negative. I mean, I even got family members that when I have something big getting ready to happen, I will not tell them because I know if I do, they're gonna take my high and excitement and
Mhm.
my drive and they're gonna bring it down.
Yep.
And it won't surpass because I've let them get in my head, and, but then I've got family members that I can go to and friends that will be like, "You go. You figure it out. We know you can do it. We know how you're gonna do it, but we know you'll do it." So you need those type of people that are gonna be pushing you, and if you can't find those rooms, you need to get in bigger rooms. Like, go to the events like me and Tom, we met at an event where there's some big thinkers in there. There's some
Yeah.
people doing big things. Get a coach, go to conferences, things like that. Hiring a coach, was the best investment I ever made in myself, and I'm like, I coach now too, and I'm like, how people think it's so stupid. It is not stupid. It is
No.
not. It is not. I grew
I used to be
so
one of those people that would say that. I used to be
Me
until you
too.
do it, and you're like,
Me too. Why would you do that?
geez.
There's YouTube videos, or why would
Yeah.
you do that?
Hmm.
They hold you accountable. If you have a good one, they'll hold you accountable, and they'll give you tools to really make you think bigger. You want
Sure.
people to hold you accountable that
And a
will.
lot of people that are saying that, like, oh, well, why would you pay for something like that? One, well, I never understood it until you do, and I'll have a coach the rest of my life, or some sort of mentor, or somebody that I'm going to be working with all the time, and then they'll probably just get wherever I'm at in my life, it'll be somebody that there's a road that's already been paved. I'm going to be on it. How do I get there? Where do I do it?
Mhm.
But um, 100%. Getting rid of the people in your life that are just bringing you down. And you touched on it. There, a lot of them are going to be either very good friends or family members that are going to be saying like they're just trying to pick holes in it, or the rhetoric is always yeah, but instead of
Mhm.
yes and. If you're out there being like, we all probably do this, right? I'm not perfect, sometimes you catch yourself doing it, but if you can change your verbiage from like yes, yeah, but or X, Y, and Z, like, hey, Megan is gonna start a new podcast. Oh, I'm so excited about it. Yeah, but I mean, how are you gonna do that? And like, who's gonna want to talk to you? Who's This is so negative, and you're right, it'll bring you down. Hey, Megan's gonna start a new podcast. Yes, and she can meet so many new people. Yes, and she can level up. Yes, and make connections everywhere. Yes, and is way better than yeah. So I challenge everybody out there, when you're talking to your friends, just practice yes and.
Yes, and yeah, exactly, and that is so good because there's so many times people are like, they'll get past a vision in their head on the like, on a drive to work or something, they're like, "I could do this, this, and this." Write it down, take your little phone out, record it because this is the best little tool. I've got so many ideas in my little voice memo thing that
Mhm.
have done and haven't done, still need to do, and that's you talk yourself out of it, and you allow people to talk yourself out of it, and think about the people that
Yes.
you're supposed to be helping and blessing, right? And when you make it about others and you're serving others and you take yourself out of it for a minute, that's when the true blessing really happens. So I know when I invest in myself, like we had my kids lost a family member and it was from my ex marriage. And I obviously I hadn't talked to a lot of them in a while, but I watched this little girl grow up. I watched her grow up. It was heartbreaking to see their family go through that, to see my children go through it. My daughter was like she lost a sister. It was terrible, and I remember the day of her funeral, we were leaving to go down to Atlanta for, I believe it was the Aspire conference that was happening down there, and Travis has never been to one, and I wanted him to see what I'm talking about when I say you get filled, your bucket gets filled when you're in those environments, and he said, "Man, do we're gonna go down there?" And I'm like, I need to get filled. I need to after what I just had to be for emotionally for my kids, and after what I just saw, and after being reminded how short life is, I need to get down there and get my bucket filled again." So when you hear coaches or you hear conferences, or if you can't afford it, you just go on YouTube, that is an option. But when you take that money, that $150 or whatever it is for a conference ticket, and you don't and you know you could be using that money for something else because you really
Mhm.
can't afford it, and you take that money for the first time and you bet on yourself, that's when the game starts changing, man.
Yeah.
And you go there and you meet people and you network with people. There's so many people that I have met through conferences, through, through things that we went to, like masterminds that me and you met at. That's how our
Sure.
friendship started.
Yep.
Um, just by going and betting on yourself, it never
Of
fails you,
course.
ever.
I feel the exact same way. I started going to masterminds. Just went out to one in Idaho last summer. Went out to back to California. I have many booked in this year. And you're
Mhm.
right. It fills your cup, and the way I used to fill my cup was just all vices. It would be overeating or booze or just trying to find the external validation. And then when you get around people who are all trying to do their own thing and level up, it's really good. And the networking is the best. Like I've met so many people. I've a thousand of numbers in here, and it's great. You can text any one of them at any time to say, "Hey, I got this. What do you think?" Or whatever it can be. But that's how you fill your cup. I agree with you. And again, if you want to do something, you don't have to do it by yourself. The lone wolf mentality is out. I did that forever. I was beating my head against this wall right here.
Yeah.
And once you get like anybody that can help in anything, like, if it's something you just don't want to do that somebody else is good at, good, outsource it. But just get other people in your life or have
Mm.
that support your vision or will at least cheer you on if you don't have a relationship. And if you're
Yeah.
in a relationship and that person's not cheering you on, it's a huge problem.
That is a big problem. They
Yeah.
need to have a come to Jesus talk. They need to get on
Yeah.
board or get out. Don't let them pull
Yeah.
you down. When you're looking for a relationship, making sure that your visions that they understand where you're going on that bus, and they can't
Mhm.
keep up, then that's a good sign not to do it.
I think that's a part of it. Like you got to be your own. You both have to have be um cheerleaders for each other and
Mm,
everything.
that's
You
good.
gotta support each other. The
Mm,
masculine shows up. The man has got to be the man. He's got to lead this relationship, and the woman in her feminine energy can fall into that energy and support that role as an equal. And you're your own little team. And if you have a family, you have a little football team or a little ballerina team. And I
yeah,
say these little words like this because that's exactly what I want. So I'm a
yeah,
single guy, and everything I just described right there is exactly what I'm going to get.
yeah, absolutely, and that's really important if you don't have that baseline there.
Mhm.
It's just gonna lead to more problems in the future, if you're not on the same page, and
Sure.
you gotta be vocal where you're at too. So, definitely okay, I know we're running low on time here, but I want people to know how they can connect with you because I have a feeling there's gonna be a guy or a girl out there that are listening. And really, and two, you talk about women and their masculine energy. Men need to kind of fall into their feminine energy. And Tom can help you do that. When we say
Yeah.
feminine, we're not turning you into no wussy, but
No,
just to
but you can,
learn. Yeah.
right. You can be, if you're a man out there and you're like, you're a strong leader in your workspace and you're kind of like this, you're the lion in your job and in like your life and with your friends and like how you quarterback stuff and you're like this alpha. That's
Mhm.
awesome. But then when a woman comes into your life, you have to be a little softer and turn into kind of like the lamb, not a sheep. So you hear this thing, lion versus not sheep, not a sheep, but a lamb where you can be compassionate, you can be soft. And really the biggest thing, this isn't anything, any relationship a man has with a woman, all you have to do is listen. Shut the fuck up.
Right.
Because if you don't, and you
Yeah.
start, and I can say I came out of this too. I used to be, on a date or whatever it would be. You would hear something, and when you're talking to each other, a woman would say something to you, and you immediately resonate with it, and you have to put your word in. That's like an anxious desire to be seen or heard or whatever. And if you just don't in anything, and just listen, that's all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
lion in your own life, lamb with your woman, and that's the feminine energy, the compassion, the softer side. You're not a wuss. You are helping your woman, and that's the feminine energy, which is amazing.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you guys, it works. It works because you asked my fiance. He told a lady on the beach, like it was just I think it was a God thing. She came up and found us on the beach, really, and we were talking, and she was kind of in this part of her relationship where she's like, I've given him a playbook and he's not listening. He doesn't get it, and I'm like, I looked at Travis and we laughed because we kinda got to that point in our relationship, about a year in our relationship, and I'm like, "Okay, I've given you a playbook. I've told you what I need, in this relationship and what I need you to do, and he was a great man. He just wasn't providing his feminine energy to me." And I was like, "Being masculine is fine, but I need you to be sweeter, I need you to write little notes." So that's what my love
Yeah.
language is, and if I
Yes.
don't have that, I question things, and I wonder about things and where you're at, and I'm not one of those, I'm like, "Oh, look at me, and I don't know, what are you thinking?" I'm not like that. I mean,
Right.
I'll say what I need and my needs, and we'll communicate as an adult. If it's not getting met, I'll pull back, and that's just it can be toxic, and I maybe and like I said, I'm still learning and growing every day, but the what do you call it? Not feminine, but the, masculine Megan, he was like, "Pull back, protect your heart.
Mhm.
He's not getting it. He doesn't care. You told him, blah, 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 blah." And I think when he saw me pulling back a little bit, he kinda self-evaluated, because that night on the beach, he told her about the guy she was seeing. They've been together for a little bit too, and he said, "Look, if you're telling him and he's not getting it, he may just not know it. He may just not know how to do it because he's never done it before, because he's never been like that. Travis has never been like that." And he's like, "It took me seeing her kind of pull back. She was I was faithful, I was still good to him, but I kind of pulled back on telling him." And he said, "I'm gonna have to do something, I'm gonna mess this up, I'm gonna lose this woman." And he really dove into his feminine energy. Now, if you look at my fiance, guys, on if you can, Google the Everyday Joe show, he has his own show. You can see he's not a feminine person whatsoever. I mean, he's got the beard and the tattoos and all the things, and so that's not like him. But with me, he is very much in his feminine energy, and I'm very much going into mine again, finally finding that, because, like, he's in California, and the last night he's calling me, he's like, "Hey, what do I need for my sinus infection?" He feels safe with me, as he should, and to me, that's more masculine than anything, is to feel safe with your woman, and you to feel safe with your man, that you can have those conversations, or you can be like, "Hey, I'm kinda scared today on this," or, "I need some advice on this," because that's between y'all, and she's not gonna make you feel bad about being in your feminine energy, and vice versa? So that's when you
Sure.
really know when you dive into it. It's there. Promise, promise.
That's
If you
that's great.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's really
Yeah.
good.
So I know I kinda got sidetracked a little bit, but I wanted to tell, because you can tell more of the single side, and I can kinda tell about, "Hey, this is what happens if you apply what he's talking about and do the work, this is what happens." And it does work, because I mean, we're walking testament to it. We're engaged now. We've been together for 2 years. Our relationship's been better than it's ever been. Are we perfect? No. Do we screw up daily? Yeah, but we have a good relationship, and it's there, and it can happen for anybody that's out there listening. Because I was listening many years ago, or a few years ago, and I was like, "This is never gonna happen for me, ever." But I did the work. You're doing
Yeah.
the work. It's
Yeah.
gonna happen.
Another thing is write stuff down. I got a little journal right here. I write in all the time. I got plenty of books over here. I'm reading, writing down, and just like write down what it makes you all just feel better. And that's like doing the work on yourself. That's part of
Mhm.
it. And just, yeah, continue to just work on yourself. And If you're a guy, another part is be courageous in your vulnerability. You
Mm,
can be vulnerable. I'm not saying, again, we're not talking about being a whiny little girl. No, but you
right.
can be vulnerable and talk about it. And when you can stand solid in that vulnerability, that's awesome because you're free of it. It's the world of the weight of the world comes off your shoulders when you can start talking about stuff. And
Absolutely.
if you're holding that down and it's like a rice cooker or like a one of those steam cookers, you're gonna blow your stack if you got all this stuff. You have to get it out, and that's what I was talking about: emotionally constipated versus emotionally available.
I
So
like that. Mostly
there's all
constant.
sorts of stuff. Yeah, yeah.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
good. Okay. Okay. Well, I know we've got you got other things you got to get to today too. So let's get to people how they can get in touch with you. So,
I'm on all the social media apps. It's this the Tom LeMere Project. And on Facebook, on Instagram, TikTok, I have a YouTube. Um, Tom LeMere Project. That's where I have my own podcast. This would be. I'm going to put this up there, and I do many things. I'll go out into the town. If you have questions, send me your questions out from men. What do you want? What are questions that you wish women would give answers on? And I go out in the town and I interview. I just go to social settings like, hey, we're talking about what are your green flags? What are your red flags? What do you want a man to know about? And they'll give answers. So it's out there, and I give an outlet for answers for, um, I think how you can live your best, happiest life. And women are trying to get out of this world in the dating space, and really out of a man in society.
that's awesome. And stay tuned if you're in Nashville. We've got something in the works.
That's
So
right.
stay tuned.
I
We
can't
have,
wait.
yeah, I can't wait. He's coming to a city near you on tour. There
Right.
you go. There you go. Well, thank you guys for listening. Again, if you are needing to connect with this podcast, you can find us on YouTube under Unstoppable. We're on Facebook under Unstoppable as well. And we are also on Apple, Spotify, all the mainstreaming platforms under Unstoppable Podcast Series. We'll have more content like this coming out soon. And thank you again for coming on today and sharing. This has
Of
been a really
course.
good podcast, very valuable.
Glad to be here. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Stay tuned, guys, for the next one. Have a good one.